99% of what you hear about the October 7th massacre revolves around the thousands of years of conflict, anti-Semitism, intelligence failures, and the possibility of a World War III. Yes, these and other reasons are indeed true, but the loss of life and unimaginable brutality on October 7th itself were, in my opinion, the result of far simpler things: gun control, arrogance, and complacency. Hi, I'm Joe Yeager, certified instructor and founder of Executive Gun, where safe and responsible gun ownership begins. Israel is surrounded by haters: Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Palestinian Authority, Islamic Brotherhood, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and others, all financed primarily by the greatest hater of all, the ruling regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't know about you, but in my humble opinion, a nation surrounded by enemies who live and breathe its destruction should have a Second Amendment equivalent in its Constitution. If you don't know what the Second Amendment is, it is part of the U.S. Constitution and reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." In essence, as American civilians, we have the right to own almost any firearm and carry certain firearms on our person to protect our lives, the lives of others, and under certain circumstances, protect our property. All in all, in the U.S., there are more privately owned guns than people. That is something I would expect in a country that is surrounded by the most evil of enemies, like Israel, don't you think? Instead, the Israeli population has become so reliant on the military and police force for protection that when allegedly they were warned that an attack is imminent, their government allegedly poo-pooed it as too ambitious for Hamas and unlikely to be credible. Thus, the arrogance and complacency. Furthermore, when the attack occurred and the news began to spread, it was thought that it was a small infiltration and the army and police would handle it swiftly. Well, we all know what happened and how long it took for the army and police to figure out what's going on and come to the rescue. Aside from the handful of citizens who were armed with pistols and the small security team each settlement had, they were overrun and butchered like fish in a barrel. The cavalry didn't arrive for 8 hours at the earliest, and in some cases for 12, against 1,500 trained and heavily armed militants and an additional 6,000 Palestinian civilians who came to loot, rape, and kill in the name of jihad. The residents of these settlements and small army bases didn't stand a chance. Now let's rewind to the morning of October 7th, when residents of the settlements first heard the sound of gunfire. If they had the right to keep and bear arms as we do and were as well armed and trained as we are, is it reasonable to believe that they could mount a much fiercer resistance? Would as many be killed, tortured, and kidnapped? I highly doubt it. It would still be an ugly battle, but the good guys would have fared far better until the army and police came to finish the job. Nothing anyone can say would convince me otherwise. The reason Hamas succeeded to the extent they did is because they knew ahead of time that resistance would be meek and the citizens would be poorly armed. Nothing, and I mean nothing, justifies the atrocities committed. However, knowing full well how brutal and evil Hamas and co. are, Israel should have never underestimated the resolve to execute on their hate. Their failure to be prepared and protect their citizens is bad enough, but I dare say that leaving their citizens so poorly armed and vulnerable is, in my opinion, the biggest failure of all, and that comes down to their strict gun control. Here's an example of Israel's firearm policy prior to October 7th. The type of firearm and number of bullets that a licensed firearm holder is permitted to purchase is limited depending on the type of license. In most cases, the weapon allowed is a pistol with a limit of 50 bullets. A license is granted for a specific firearm, and any additional firearm requires an additional license. An individual who wishes to carry a personal firearm must meet all of the preconditions and adhere to at least one eligibility criterion. Furthermore, one must display a reasonable need for self-defense. So being surrounded by maniacs whose sole purpose in life is to kill you isn't a reasonable enough reason? Seriously? You get the point. But if you want to know the firearm regulation in Israel in more detail, I left a link in the description. Israeli citizens interviewed by journalists said that since the attack on October 7th, no one feels safe anymore. Israel will never be the same again. It's transforming people, politics, and the army. What Hamas has done could happen to us. This isn't science fiction. Amir Erez, a father of 3 teenage daughters, interviewed by Lucas Bariolet of the French publication Le Monde, said that he spent 25,000 shekels, which is over $6,000 for the full training course, as well as the pistol and ammunition. The aim for him and his comrades is to be able to hold out until help arrives in the event of an attack. Other survivors of October 7th said that they have a contract with the government for their protection. That is why they settled near the Gaza border. So much for that contract. Safe, responsible, and law-abiding gun owners have been preaching the concept of being our own first responders until and if help arrives for decades. On October 7th, there were too few first responders and help didn't come for at least 8 hours. Why does such a tragedy have to occur for that to finally be taken seriously? With all the random events of terrorism that Israel has endured over the years, the Intifada uprisings, the suicide bombings, the random infiltrations, you would think that their gun control policies would be more conducive to citizens being able to defend themselves at the very hint of an attack. Yet, their gun control became stricter and the price paid is continuing to climb. The threat is spreading around the world. Anti-Semitism may be the loudest cry, but the free world as a whole is the target. The attacks of October 7th emboldened the haters of the West and those who want a world ruled by Islam. Yet, there are way too many people who still live in their bubble, refusing to believe it could happen to them and where they are. Some people say I'm fear-mongering and the likelihood of the same happening here is slim to none. Didn't Israel respond the same way when warned about what's to come? And although there are many citizens here that are armed, there are many who are not, and many who are not adequately trained. It's time to reconsider. Western countries around the globe who had open border policies for refugees seeking asylum from war-torn Middle Eastern countries have experienced an exponential rise in crime and depletion of resources. Since October 7th, they've been scrambling to amend their immigration policies for fear of uprisings from within, and many are considering deportations and revocation of citizenships of people who are believed to be a threat to national security and their way of life. The threat isn't some random third world rogue nation with a delusional narcissistic dictator spewing empty threats at his neighbors. The threat is a powerful coalition with as much firepower and hate for the free world, and worse, is well entrenched within our borders, and our leadership is letting it happen. That's what happens when you mix arrogance, complacency, and gun control. You get October 7th. The perpetrators of the massacre of that fateful day and their supporters say they will do it again and again and again until all Jews are dead, Israel no longer exists, and the world is ruled by Islamic Sharia law. I strongly suggest that you believe them. If you enjoy this video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and watch the next video right here. Train hard, often, and safely, and I'll see you at the range.